Empire, and in a rather peaceful manner, which itself was a revolutionary. So since then, the end of the colonial period, many countries became independent. The last ones were in Africa in the 60s because Europeans were not willing to cooperate. But that has produced some 200 plus states in the international system. And they are the members of the UN General Assembly. And out of that, you have a few that are considered as great powers. The victors of World War II, such as United States, Russia, the Soviet Union at that time, UK, France, and 5 permanent members, they assumed the Security Council leadership role. They gained what we call veto power. But history is, as I mentioned, is often characterized as a struggle for power by dominant states. States or countries or kingdoms, when they become materially strong, their technology, their military power, economic power, all of them become stronger, they have a temptation or tendency to dominate the rest of the world, to spread their ideas, to spread their technology, to benefit. They benefit enormously from that. So often the change happens through wars, big wars among the great powers. In European history itself, you had some 16 such wars, and there is a famous book by Harvard University professor Graham Allison. The book is called Thucydides' Trap, in which he says only 4 big transformations in world history took place since the medieval times through peaceful means or absence of war. 12 of them were through war, big wars. So the victor sets up the rules of the game, as happened in 1945, the United Nations system, where they created this land global order. So the United States emerged as the most powerful Western country, creating an alliance among its European partners and East Asian partners. And then the Soviet Union, which was the other member of this coalition that won the war against Nazi Germany, formed their coalition and a bloc called Warsaw Pact. Both these were engaging in an intense Cold War, and the Cold War was intense because I was a student, you guys were not, but when the Cold War was ending, every day this was the topic. Gorbachev saying something, Reagan saying something about military competition, war, peace, whatnot, nuclear weapons. The Cold War ended by 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed. Rather peacefully, a very rare event in history. Very few times these kind of big empires just collapse. They go with the war, big killings. But as you notice in Ukraine, that collapse did not produce eternal peace, perpetual peace. That was a temporary peace. The Soviet Union declined, but now it's trying to assert, that's Russia under Putin, bringing back this old idea of territorial domination, spheres of influence. These are all how great powers are known for controlling the world. But they don't have enough capacity other than sufficient military capacity for deterring, preventing the other great powers. But it is a limited capacity, and you can see he's struggling quite a bit in resisting that. And the United States and the European allies are supporting the Ukrainians to resist. But among all this, something bigger is happening. That's the rise of China. Why we say that is, whenever a country has, let's say, 25 to 30% of the world's GDP, that country is important. It has power. It can control the trade, it can control the routes, it can control stock market, it can control quite a bit of things. And so China's rise is a tremendous, important event in our historical time, in your time. Where that rise is going to head will determine whether we have peace, whether we have war, whether our young people join the armed forces rather than going to technological institutions or universities, what we do in life, there's a structural impact of this big power that is coming up. And that power started off as a communist country, as we know, 1949, with the revolution Mao Zedong won. And at that time, their economy was the size of India. They had almost same parameters, but they put a lot of effort into, as the communists did here in Kerala too, in social development, which produced a little better system than ours, all over India talking about, in terms of education, in terms of basic healthcare, social indicators development. So, but still, it was a poor country. I remember visiting in 1980s, Beijing. Basically, bicycles, everybody was going. There were hardly any cars, maybe in the big cities, of course. But it was a bicycle country. People go in droves of bicycles, which basically meant they didn't have enough money. But then comes this big opening. The United States, under Nixon and Kissinger, decided to open up to China. Why? Anyone knows why Nixon and Kissinger decided to open up to their internal enemy, the Marxist, Communist, Maoist China in the 1970s? Anyone can say that? Malayalam is okay too. What was the reason? The reason was the Soviet Union was becoming very powerful, at least to Americans, to balance this powerful Soviet empire. Because the Soviets and the Chinese, Mao and Stalin onwards, Khrushchev in particular, ended up in a conflict. Soviet-China division. The Americans made use of that, formed a kind of a semi-alliance, and opened up the American economy to them, market to them. So the Chinese were very clever, smart. The American companies were invited to special economic zones, several of them on the coastal cities and towns, closer to Hong Kong, some of them. And these would be given special permission, no taxes, lots of goodies like free electricity, whatnot, export zones. And they came in big numbers. Established all the big multinationals you see today, established their market there. What do the Chinese offer? Cheap labor, cheap production costs, and no interference, surprisingly, unlike our country in many ways, where interference to production is very high. And the Chinese economy shot up massively, benefiting from this export boom, just like Japan, Korea all did in the past. So this strategic change the Chinese had put, and the leader who took that was called Deng Xiaoping, a short man, just like our Shastri, but an enormously smart man. He has some very wise words for the Chinese. Don't stand before you can sit. The cat can be black or white as long as it catches mice. You understand what he's trying to say? Pragmatism. The communists are not known for pragmatism, but this man transformed it and made it a semi-capitalist country. Enormous wealth was coming in, and what he did was transforming the Chinese landscape, infrastructure, trains, all kinds of social development, jobs for everybody, it's massive growth. So I said I visited in before this revolution, and after that I went once, and some of the cities look better than Western cities. Their trains look better than Western trains, American trains. America doesn't have a train system. This was very impressive. How did they achieve this? Hard-working people using the international market and becoming the #1 trading partner for almost everybody, including India, and now I think US as well as India is being a trading partner. And in that process, becoming a very important state, it was a kind of great power. It had a UN Security Council veto holding position. But today, it is #2 world economy. Very shortly, if it manages to develop, will become #1. And already in purchasing power parity terms, which means the World Bank has a system, if you can buy with $1 how much goods in this country, for instance, you can get a tea for 20 cents, whereas the same tea in the US would be $3 or whatever. So purchasing power parity, there is a mathematical calculation for that, gives in China #1 economy in the world. India is #3, by the way, US #2. So, but in real dollar terms, China will take maybe another 10, 20 years, unless of course there is some decline right now, and will become the world #1 economy held by the United States until today, since World War II. This is a momentous change, momentous moment, and a country of that size, with a big market, and a country of that ambitious state, where now leaders are talking about dominating, changing the world order, which means the United States is threatened. The United States thought somehow this country can be socialized by trading with them, make them part of your economic network, and change their political system, which is rather slowly but much faster than previous historical periods, because of the rise of new technology, AI, artificial intelligence, all sorts of technology China has managed to acquire through trade, sometimes through spying, what all. It's become part of the global network of interdependent supply chains, etc. Now, what is the thing happening after Xi Jinping, who came to power in 2012? He is a very ambitious man. He is ambitious like any previous great powers. He realizes that his moment has come. Now is the time to try to lead the world, change the dominant system, Western system, and he has managed to generate a lot of support within the system, as far as we know. And now he has declared himself sort of lifelong president, Communist Party, all forms of titles. He wants to be a robot like Mao. He is in a hurry. This is a big problem when a dictator type leader is in a hurry. Previously we had Hitler, and I'm not saying Xi Jinping is Hitler, who thought he had a very short time to live, and Germany should conquer the world, become the leading power for the next 1,000 years. This is a very powerful thing. Leaders with the capacity to speak and engage. And if Hitler spoke to the Germans, it took only 3 minutes to convert them. He was so powerful as a speaker, because they were humiliated by the other European powers in World War I. They thought they should somehow they should retaliate, become very powerful. So the Chinese have somewhat little problem. They think they were humiliated by the Europeans, which they did. But India was humiliated a lot more, because we were directly conquered. They were not directly conquered. Only pockets of China were under European control. But there were moments when Europeans humiliated them. British went and burned down the palace in Beijing, Peking. Quite a few wars like Boxer rebels. There were a lot of things. And then the Japanese came and occupied Montreal in World War II, and the Nanjing massacre, they make it as a big deal, because some 300,000. So what they're saying is this 100-year humiliation we want to rectify. We want to go back to our old system, which according to them, the East Asian world order was controlled by China. It was called the Tianxia system, tributary model, which by smaller states, smaller empires were allowed to live, but they have to bring tribute. In Kerala, we had the same problem with Nambudis. I don't know if any of you know this, because this is before your times. Basically, the farmers, including all Christians in particular, I remember my father collecting the etaka and the nella and all, taking it to the Brahmin's court, leaving it outside and leaving from there. You cannot meet him, that kind of system in that. It's the same thing. The Chinese emperor would sit there in Beijing these Thais and the Koreans and Burmese all go with their tributes and bend themselves and say, we won't do anything harmful to you, but we need your benevolence. So the emperor, the Chinese emperor, then gives them the assurance, I will not conquer you, but you are subordinate to me. You are not equal to me. So this is a hierarchical model. But it worked well for some period, because these countries otherwise would have been not protected by outside, from attack by outsiders. So what China wants, by the way, it's a fictionalized system, because there are a lot of other systems that are happening in South Asia. We have the Mughal Empire, in the Arab world, quite a few empires, Persian, before that it was the Genghis Khan, the Mongols. But in any case, what the Chinese want is Asia Pacific, or nowadays called Indo-Pacific, under their control, dominance, and these other states, including India, would bring tributes and accept their dominance status. So you may wonder why all of a sudden we have border problems in the northeast, the Himalaya borders. A lot to do with this. India is one of the swing states that can challenge China up to a point. And actually finishing the book on this subject. India has same aspirations, but India took a longer time. We liberalized only in 1991. They liberalized in 1979 onwards. So 10-year difference, and that affected India's growth. Our growth and the economies were almost the same. But now it's 5 times larger there. And their achievements are tremendous. You see even poverty reduction, India is nowhere near. But India is getting there. It is actually the fastest growing economy now. So they know that India, with the support of the United States, Japan and other countries, Australia, can form a formidable coalition to stop them from becoming dominant. So what do they want? They are needling India. Give up. You don't want to fight us. We want to be the dominant dog. We call it dog, the top dog. By the way, it's a place in English as well. India under Modi, of course, won't accept that. We think that we are a civilization state. Anyway, India was defeated in 1962 in a war, which humiliated India. We haven't gotten over that yet. It was a tremendous humiliation for India to lose that war. But that border is, because they withdrew from many places in the northeast, that border is not settled. Now it has become more militarized on both sides, especially the Chinese have built a lot of infrastructure. Now, the pandemic came, and that was a tremendous blow to countries like India. We have 4 million people apparently died, and tremendous economic decline for a short period. Now it's slowly catching up. The middle class was increasing, that number declined. And so this came from China, of course. And now the Chinese are facing somewhat similar situation, partly because they didn't accept the Western vaccines or Indian vaccinations. And they tried to use their vaccines and not very effective. And so as an authoritarian system, they tried to put lockdowns and control. They had enormous suffering. I have a friend in Shanghai who was so unhappy, wanted to leave the place somehow. It's impossible to get out. That kind of control. And it is an enormous cost on them. But they are very capable of coming back in their ways. The problem is, will this produce the post-pandemic world the next several years? A war between the United States and China, because both are building up in the Pacific, and Taiwan is the lost territory that they want to recover. The Taiwanese have become very rich, very modern state, very capitalist state, democratic state, which doesn't want to join China under the current system, because they know that Hong Kong, which was leased to Britain, went back to China, and now they have taken away all the special deals that was given to Hong Kong. So We are at a moment where the United States has now managed to increase its presence with the friendship with India, quadrilateral relationship, Japan, Australia, and quite a bit of Southeast Asian countries. But China is number one trading partners of almost everybody in this region. They're building their navy, they're increasing their strength in the military sector, and more modern weapons are being developed there. And their relationships have gone into a bad state. They don't even talk to each other properly. They met recently in Bali. There was a difficult conversation. And the United States, there's a lot of people who think that this is the American moment to recover, reassert. And then comes the Ukraine war, where the Europeans were moving away from the United States. Now all of a sudden they're all interested in the American protection. So NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is strengthened with the joining of Finland, Sweden and other countries that were outside it. And a lot of East European countries are already members. So the American dominance is continuing, but America is also relatively declining. Population is not increasing as much. And there's a lot of social problems, political problems in America. Populism of Donald Trump and others. A lot of things that you don't even believe that this democracy would allow. They are doing that. So American decline may happen because of the relative positioning of these countries. And India is getting there a little bit more than it used to be. And so the big problem is, will we ever have a peaceful accommodation, peaceful transition, peaceful power transition? Because history doesn't give us a good example. Many transitions were through violence, especially the political systems are different. But what is preventing a big war may be the presence of nuclear weapons or nuclear deterrence, mutual assured destruction, which means no one can really conquer territory of a nuclear state without self-destruction of themselves. And so that deters, that prevents them from starting. So that is a big change in the world. Economic globalization, countries are interconnected a lot more than they used to be. There are norms against conquest, which means smaller states are protected at a point. And so there are a lot of things that are really preventing outright conquest, as the Europeans did in the Cold War or the colonial period, or what Russia is trying to do, but not getting the recognition. So the world is changed much, but these great powers are trying to bring back the world what they were sovereign, what that was in the past. So China wants to resurrect the traditional Jiangxia or hereditary model. The United States want to retain its dominance. Russia wants the old Russian Empire controlling its citizens. So in between are countries like India or other small states, hoping to survive with a lot of crises, climate change, all these problems with pandemics, development, and of course the general living standards of people are so uneven, with the rich becoming richer and the poor becoming poorer. So all that suggests to us how disciplined international relations all of a sudden is very popular. My classes are taken within the 5 minutes when it's open up. A lot of students want to know what's going on. You are also should be aware of that. You cannot just ignore the world around you. We need to understand what's going on. There are theoretical tools, conceptual tools, scholarly works, which cannot be obtained only through reading newspapers or Google News or whatever most youngsters do these days. Some in-depth studies are needed, and surely we can. And so I want to conclude that part of our discussion. It's telling me to stop. Now, the big challenge is a country like India, which is itself prides itself as a civilization state. We have the population size number one, by the way, most populous state in India will be up in 2 months, April 3 months. But the problem is you have a high a number of demographic dividend they call it. People like you, the 16 to 36 age group, working population. That population is the hope of India. Nowhere in the world do you find this many young people. But are we really training them, using them, skill development? Some do with some push. But you have an opportunity, even if you come from poorer conditions, to look at the world. The world is a lot more globalized than our times when it was impossible to do anything from Kerala in particular. So that's why I studied at Maharaja's College, then I decided to go to Delhi, JNU, worked in journalism there for a while. But everything was concentrated in Delhi. No information was available. I remember going to the American Center and getting the university list they had, or the Australian consulate getting their list. But then you have to, there's no internet, so you have to apply to their, request a form and fill it out and apply, and then it takes months to get that process. But today, everything is online. You can get from your home all the application materials, etc. It doesn't mean that you have to go abroad all the time. It is a myth. If you are not interested, don't go abroad. You go only if you think you can do and make a difference, if you really need that education. If you decide to go, what is the best way? Especially if you are a bachelor student, many of you are, I believe, you definitely need a bit more training in research, in writing, in social skills. So I would enter a master's program like MGU, I guess you have one at CMS, or even the central universities, get a bit more exposure to the subject matter. Then think of applying for master's or PhD, or you can apply for master's abroad if you have money, because many of the schools will take you if you have funding. The problem is our discipline is not going to guarantee you a job immediately. Academic jobs are very few. So it's a big challenge if you go directly to that. But you should have a plan. Public policy areas are good. Law degrees are very important. Or some specialized areas with some possibilities for career improvement. Now, how do you apply to foreign universities? Many of you probably already know the process. Why only some manage to get in? Part of it is they are not doing the homework. Universities get a lot of applications, and there is deadlines all the time, and these deadlines cannot be changed. So Western universities, Canada and US, often the admission is in the fall. Fall means September onwards. So you apply this year for next year's admission. So for many of them nowadays, come online by June for next year's admission. So 3-4 things are important. First of all, you need a statement, a short statement. What you want to do, why you want to study. That's why I meant going to a master's here will help you understand. Or talking to a professor like this and telling them what you want to do. That statement has to be well written, tight, with a mission. In other words, you can't just say everything you want. You're studying with a purpose. And there's a committee often formed by faculty members that assess these files. Each file has 3-4 components. One of them is the statement. Second is your letters of recommendation from professors who taught you. So that is a little bit of a problem in India because professors sometimes don't know what to emphasize. The professor has to be told to write sometimes. You have to approach them ahead of your application and get a nice letter, not just praising you as this person is beautiful or handsome or whatever, but on the intellectual side, the scholarly aptitude side. And the professor has to show some proof by saying, this person took class with me, did extremely well, got a grade overall, wrote this paper, which I don't know about that system, that also has all these attributes, scholarship, research skills, aptitude in collecting data, analysis, political skills, etc. And this person will be a good fit for your program because of the social skills that person has, language skills. Letters are needed, and the letter doesn't have to come from famous people, it doesn't matter. People who taught you, people who know you. If a person doesn't know you, that letter has no value. So often people approach me, write a letter for me because I just saw you. That won't help because the committee decides, even if I'm known, this letter has no value because there's no sincerity there. It's basically just this person I respect. No, it's not needed. So then in many places you need GRE, in the US in particular, graduate record exam. It is a tough one for many Indians. You have to practice, prepare, and then take that exam. That's also online these days. You need TOEFL, certain scores, English to teach. But this is mostly in America. But any other schools in Canada, Australia, or UK, and Europe, by the way, which is what you should focus. There are European schools that teach in English. In Vienna, there is a school called Diplomatic Academy, where I sometimes teach. Usually get 1 or 2 Malayalis there. There is Geneva, there is Barcelona. All these have master's programs, good programs. England, all these schools are. So some of these European schools pay fellowship. Now coming to East Asia, you have master's programs in Singapore. Singapore National University, Nanyang Technological University, RSIS, or graduate school. You have Korea, Japan. You have quite a few schools that teach international studies, or political science, or history, whatever subject you want. So I wouldn't be so hang on going to the Western countries only. If you get a good master's from Singapore, you will be in a good position to get a job even back in India. So have a plan of action. You start, not wait for the last minute, and then have this application and your GPA. You have GPA system? Yes. If your GPA is very low, there's no point in applying. Do something here. The GPA has to be at least. Now I'm trying to be sincere what I'm saying because there is so much competition. I was on the committee last year. 600 applications for 20 positions. And so you tick, how many can you read? And if the GPA is low, it goes down. And you put that. So based on these marks, you give for GPA 1 point, for lectures 1 point, for statement 1 point. Overall, total 5 points. So if you get anything above 4.5, only there's a chance you get it. The rest won't be. So it's accumulating. And then average of these 5 other faculties. So it's not just one person. And so it is a challenging task, but it is not impossible if you put your mind to it. It depends if you have a passion for this business. If your passion is, I don't know, people have different passions, but and don't expect any quick success in academia. Academia is a tough business, competitive business. Of course, in India, if you get a decent job, then you're comfortable, they're likely to be fired unless. But in the Western world, there's something called tenure, which means I have to produce every year to get some merit increment, get my promotion. Of course, now I got all the promotions I need, I don't need any more. But even then, I'm constantly producing articles, books, stuff, so that I can keep up with my competition. There is competition from young people who are coming from all over the world. So, academic world, but professional level, you can decide whether after master's you really want to do a PhD. You have to be patient, passionate. There are three or four P's: patience, passion, perseverance. And so you have to be all that. And of course, there will be a lot of struggles in between. But then, of course, creative work, there's a lot of fun, freedom to think and write. Unless, of course, the governments tell you how to think. This is the problem with the authoritarian systems, where I wouldn't go to China to do an MA in international relations, although they were attracting a lot. Now it has become impossible to think there and make a very critical remark. So freedom is very important for scholarship in social sciences. Anyway, I will take a few questions on either the China's rice issue or you have any questions about the research possibilities, especially for undergraduates. I guess I took less than 15 minutes. Malayalam question or ഒരു കാലത്ത് ഞാൻ മലയാളത്തിലെ ലേഖനങ്ങളൊക്കെ എഴുതുമായിരുന്നു, കവിത, സാഹിത്യം. അതൊന്നും ശരിയായില്ല. ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് മച്ച് ബെറ്റർ, ഫോറിൻ ലാംഗ്വേജ്.
Very simple manner. So it's time for your question. You can ask the question. We plan to do the topic. Topic ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ just introduce how can you apply for admission higher education especially in the Europe or the America. So നിങ്ങൾക്ക് higher education ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് set plan now become widely in Kerala that after the plus 2 or the degree, some of the students are pursuing are interested to pursue higher studies in the Europe, either in Europe or in Canada or America. So you can ask the procedure, what are the prospects for the students, especially from the Kerala. ഇതൊക്കെ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ചോദിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയുള്ള നമുക്ക് വളരെ വേറെ ഓപ്പർച്യൂണിറ്റിയാണ്. ആ ഓപ്പർച്യൂണിറ്റി ഉപയോഗിച്ച് നിങ്ങളുടെ ഹെസിറ്റേഷൻസ് ഒക്കെ മാറ്റി വെച്ച് വിഷയമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടും സ്റ്റഡീസുമായിട്ടൊക്കെ ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടും നമുക്കിവിടെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ചോദിക്കാം, സംശയം ചോദിക്കാം. ആൻഡ് ഓഫ് കോഴ്സ് പ്രൊഫസർ അലക്സാണ്ടർ, Professor of Political Science, he is also with us. Welcome, sir. Questions on the observation ഒക്കെ ഞാൻ വലിയ ഇതുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ചോദിക്കാനുള്ള അവസരം കൂടിയാണ്. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അവിടെ വേദിക്കാൻ ചോദിക്കാൻ ആദ്യം പല ചോദ്യം ചോദിക്കുമ്പോൾ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് നിങ്ങളുടെ ഒബ്സർവേഷൻ നടത്തുന്നതൊക്കെ നിങ്ങളുടെ പേര് ക്ലാസ്സിൽ പഠിക്കുന്നത് കൃത്യമായിട്ടൊന്ന് ഇൻട്രൊഡ്യൂസ് ചെയ്യുക. ഇൻട്രൊഡ്യൂസ് യുവർസെൽഫ് and then ask question.
ആരെങ്കിലും ധൈര്യപൂർവ്വം എഴുതാൻ ചോദിച്ചോ? കുഴപ്പമില്ല. Good. What's your name?
അത് നമ്മുടെ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ സിസ്റ്റത്തിൽ വളരെയധികം മാറ്റങ്ങൾ വരുത്തുന്നുണ്ട്. എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഇപ്പോൾ തലേ നമ്മുടെ സിസ്റ്റം കുറച്ച് ബുക്കിഷ് ആൻഡ് ലാക്സ് പ്രാക്ടിക്കൽ എലമെന്റ്. അപ്പം യു സർവ് ഇൻ കാനഡ. അപ്പം ഇന്ത്യൻ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ സിസ്റ്റം ആൻഡ് എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ സിസ്റ്റം ഇൻ കാനഡ, is there any similarity that exists or it's entirely different? And one more thing, sir. And at the beginning of the session, you said that you are the only one who was selected for this program from the social science discipline. The rest all are from science and technological.
Only two others, so I don't know in the future they know.
Okay, I don't know what word to use, whether it's equality or partiality between this science and social science. This exists in India. Even after when I choose BA Political Science after plus 2, I took science in plus 2. I heard many criticisms on taking this. Is this exist in Canada or in abroad too? Only in India or in abroad?
Yes, I will start with the second question because this is something I face too with Indian crowd there. So I have a lot of people, young people, friends, family, they're settled. They're all engineers or doctors. You guys speak quite otherwise I can't speak loudly. So we have sometimes different parties, gatherings. The moment I say political science, there is a strange look on it. What? How did you end up here? Political science? I'm one of the other people doing this subject in Malayalis or Indians. Indians are good. So the reason is that Indians have traditionally been anti-social science. We have a big, even Nehru's time, although Nehru was a scientist, but enormous amount of interest in history and international relations. You should read his world history, the books Discovery of India. First of all, has anyone read Discovery of India? Okay, it should be made compulsory, big book. You will be amazed how much that man knew about. He was trained as a scientist. Anyway, so this problem exists because in our system here, if you did not get into medical school, I mean, as like I'm holding something, you didn't get into medical school first of all, no. Engineering school second, and then other sciences. So there's always value in scientific training. But the big problem is not all of us are cut out for science or mathematics beyond the point. Scientific spirit, scientific temper is also there in social sciences. So you need both. The problem is jobs are very few, skill sets are not there, so they tend to look down upon social sciences. And that is a mistake, but in India today, as far as I know, doing a good political science or other degree is not going to hurt you. You will get some job in companies, journalism, or some position. It may not be as well paying as an IT person. Because India is just opening up, there's so much opportunities. In the West, there is not that much stigma of doing political science, social science. Because there are still in Canada, for instance, many students end up in government jobs. They are looking for people who can analyze things, write things, end up in law school. In fact, I have never seen somebody coming back to me and say, I'm unemployed because I took political science. Which is a big deal. A McGill MA in political science or a BA will get you something in the competition world over. So you have to get rid of that idea, I'm not good because I'm not doing science. Because you are good, your mind is very important. And when you, by the way, when I start engaging these scientific people, very smart people, they all think they know everything about the subject I just talked about. China's rise, India's relations, Modi, all little knowledge they have. I'm not saying they're not bright. Brightness is one thing. Knowledge acquired through reading and analyzing and engaging is another thing. And often these technical schools don't give them that soft skill. There is no opportunity for them to do a reading history or philosophy. As a result, many of them are narrow, and that is a problem. So what do you want? You want that kind of narrowness? Of course, they will have a good job, maybe they are smart in their business. Good schools in the American system and Canadian system have both. MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the world's leading technology schools, has one of the best social science, political science program, linguistics, any discipline you talk, they are there. And they interact with the scientists too. It's somehow we got this idea that because maybe we didn't put enough emphasis on this training. The problem is now we are suffering because India is rising as an economic power. And look at sometimes the policies not reflect, the skill set is not there, even the people making policy in Delhi or other places. And they cannot understand what world politics dynamics are. So they come with ad hoc policies. So you need both, but you also need to develop the skill sets. So when you do political science, you're not just doing reading Plato, Aristotle, or you are also developing the idea how to write, how to express, how to argue without being defensive, how to debate, how to become a good citizen, a liberal citizen in many ways. And that is needed for society to advance. Modern world was not created by just scientists or technocrats. There's a lot of philosophers, people who came up with ideas how to transform the world. Modernity was by these people. It's the Europeans often in that world. But even here, you look at our philosophers and ideas that have changed the way we look at business. So, narrow approach is a big problem. What was the first question? Similarities. Yeah, there are quite a few differences. I must say that as I studied in both systems, in my class, for instance, the undergraduate class, there are lectures. I give 2 lectures a week for the syllabus. There is a reader with mostly not a textbook, collection of good articles on the mind. It's officially a good, but students love it. and there's a reader, they have to read that. So they come to the lecture now. During the pandemics it was online, but now they're coming increasingly, twice a week. And then they have something called a conference with a teaching assistant, where they debate different subjects, clarify the readings, etc. And then the components are, there is a research paper, which the students themselves decide the topic in consultation sometimes with me or with the teaching assistant. And that paper will carry something like 30% of marks. That's the big difference. I don't know if you have that here. That creates a lot of opportunities for the student to be creative. Sometimes they come up with excellent ideas. And that is the training, tremendous training. And then there is exam, somewhat similar to yours. Even then, the exam questions are, at least my questions are cleverly put. You have to think a little bit before you start writing. It's not like making up the whole text, what somebody said or what. So there is creativity there. The third part is these conferences where they also are assessed for oral presentation, debate skills, attendance. So after the course is done, you're supposed to be able to discuss this topic matter as a professional, not as an outsider. So they take several courses like this independently. There's no complete set, is not given to you. There may be 20, 30 courses are there in each discipline. So in political science, if you're specializing, you should do 3-4 international relations, 3-4 comparative politics, political theory, Canadian politics, American politics, like that. And then you can take courses in other disciplines, in another big difference. Economics, cognitive disciplines, history, sociology, anthropology, but not even business. Some people then do joint honors programs with sciences too. One of them do that, and in management subjects, professionally oriented. That is, I think, a big difference here. You have joint programs with other disciplines. So this is something this system could have been introduced. You could do management and political science, so international political economy or international relations. People are in high demand if they do these joint programs in West, because they get management schools like people trained in these broader teams or other disciplines, economics, for instance. So overall, I would rate the Western system in many ways better, but not necessarily in every sense. I think the Indian school system does a good job in producing scientific, mathematical training early on. So that's why our top tier ends up in IITs and MIT, big schools in the United States. That's only a small percentage, which by the way is very complicated. Our history training is a little better. The American and Canadian history is very much narrowly focused on their history. Our geography training is better. And India has a lot of things, we went through this thing. But learning as subject, certain things we can improve. I don't know, the new policy will change. The new policy will attract foreign campuses here. I'm not so sure many of them will come, especially in social sciences, because you have to have freedom to debate, discuss, at times against your government. So that is becoming harder and harder. And so there's a lot of challenge. In any case, at least they're trying. It's good they're trying. They need to put more resources. India was spending 2% of its GDP on education. 1% to the top schools like the IIC, IITs, 1% is mass education, which hurt India. Today it's about 3.4%. You need a total of 6 to 8% of the GDP to education, educated people. And education is the key to India's development, because human resources is the number one resource you have. You don't have oil, you don't have all the things like gold and things like that. What is your brain is your rich. Brain gain is your rich thing that you got. So how do you get your brain into active mode? Through education. So every government in India somehow, and I don't want to put any names, did not pay attention to that dimension sufficiently. They are talking about it now a little bit more, but I don't know. It requires, see, Kerala did it, by the way. Kerala spends 30% of the state income on education. That's why you guys are sitting here. When I was a kid, they started out with schools in the 1950s and 60s. I'm not from the 50s, I'm from the 60s. But the schools were in every village. This was a revolution, for Kerala. Before that, of course, the Christian missionary, the Civilmas colleges, all these schools started and then followed by other communities and Naya societies. But that transformation happened here because of education revolution. We were not a modern society by any means until the 1950s, by the way. I don't want to tell you what's all happening here. Vivekananda said we are an asylum. It was pretty bad, many things. But it changed, transformed because of education. And all over India that hasn't happened. Uttar Pradesh is still, unfortunately, the state where we were in the 1800s, many years. So this transformation will happen only through education, skill development, and massive improvement in the quality. So in any case, we have examples. Korea. Korea was poorer than India and Pakistan independently. They had no money, nothing. Today, Korea is the most advanced state, one of the most advanced states. And the person to see how much they have. The person was telling me now you will listen to Korean music, even the soft powers. Anyway, I don't want to pull down, but there is hope here. Talking about it. You need a lot more international collaboration. People like me are willing to come, but as long as there is freedom, as well as opportunity. So this program is amazingly, I never thought it would happen, but it happened, so we need to start. Okay, other questions? How are we doing? Yes, madam, stand up and you need a microphone.
As we all know, China will overtake the United States in 10 to 12 years. And it's obvious that because of the socialist economy that China has. So my question is that if India adopts such an economy, it's not possible India as we have a mixed economy, but if we adopt certain policies from China, it's a country like India to achieve a rapid growth.
Yeah, this is a common question whether India can become a China. Some policies, you're very smart when you said some policies, but not everything. First of all, they have a 90% one ethnic group, the Han ethnic group. They have a tradition of hard work. We are all hard workers, but in the places, they have a tradition of intense family kind of system, Confucian ethics. And they are highly motivated, which is they are given this propaganda that they have every right to become the world leader on everything. And they have political leaders, whether we like it or not. The communist bureaucracy is still better than English bureaucracy in delivering. They are corrupt, and this is the famous statement that somebody told me. They are corrupt but they deliver, whereas Indian bureaucracy is corrupt but they don't deliver. So get the bribe but deliver, that's the thing. It's a big challenge. So, but there are things that India can follow from them. One of them is trading strategy. You have to create trading hubs. You have to create special economic zones. You have to make use of the global opportunity you have with the US and our friends, with Japan. Establish your better infrastructure. This is another problem. Infrastructure in India, although some of these highways look good, nowhere near China's. I don't want to pull down India's infrastructure. Just traveling around you see it's very difficult a modern industrial infrastructure. So that has to improve, and you can learn a lot from not just China, Japan, Korea. These guys are coming to help us in opening up. And so that part. The other part to learn is mass education. They have given education to the masses. Healthcare, they have given. And so the lifespan, the lifespan is increasing. India is also increasing a little. The quality of life, they have done much better. They claim they have gotten rid of poverty, abject poverty. India has a long way to go. 30% of Indians have less than $2. There is extraordinary income polarization happening in India, especially with the globalization. They are creating billionaires. They are not putting the money into social development. What else can you learn from them? Hard work, a grand strategy. They have a strategy which is getting somewhere. But there are things that you don't want to learn from them, which is authoritarian model. That is book I'm talking about. Why is the Chinese system problematic? Yes, they are good in creating some form of development, rapid development. But look at what is happening now in this pandemic controls. There is no media reporting. See, India had all that deaths and all that, but the media reported. Then only the bureaucrats had. Murthy Sen, famous economist, and this famous book about famines in India and China. During the Maoist period, there are also big famines. A lot of Chinese died, whereas famines declined in India. We have other problems like calorie deficiency, etc. Because when there is a possibility of a famine, there is press freedom, the press reports, and the bureaucrat has to act. In China, that didn't exist. This is exactly what is happening now. There is no idea what's happening in provinces in China where people are dying, suffering, and there is no freedom of thought. So you don't want that part. Democracy, although with all its problems, is still India's strength. Because without democracy, you cannot control this mass number of people. And who will be running India? Imagine if this became an authoritarian state. The same bureaucrats who are not taught to be different, they will then become much worse than what they are today. I think during emergency period, which many of you probably were not born at that time, I must tell you, the trains were running occasionally probably. But there was great fear and especially if you are an opposition. I had a college, I was a development college, I was in poor SFI fellows grabbed by the police and taken, and I had to stand in between him and the police. Although I was the opposite party and all of this. But he was my friend and I felt so bad. We had to go and fight to release him because he said something or something. It's a bad system that was in terms of freedom. Freedom is the most precious thing you can ever get as a human being. Don't ignore that. You can get all the food and everything. Of course, if you don't have food, then it's a big problem. But you can have both. China is not a place I want to pay double my salary, but maybe for a short period. Then I want to return where I can say what I feel like. So India has some of the institutions, constitutional structures, the diversity of India. India has enormous structural problems, such as because of our caste system, there's a hierarchy, class system, income inequalities. Some of them, of course, policies are needed over time. India has its own merit. It has work on technology, acquiring technology, improving the climate change issues, the pollution that we're controlling. A lot of that can be done within the democracy. This is my big point. But why are you blame democracy? The men who are in charge, the women who are in charge, have to change their attitude. The bureaucrats sitting in your offices have to move the file. It's not the democracy, it's me as a person. It's an agent for development. Am I inculcating in myself the idea that I am the agent of development? So every IAS officer, put in their brain, you are not there to collect bribes, but to move things. Change the way, that developmental passion for development. This is what happened in Korea, Japan, it is a village officer. That hasn't happened to India, unfortunately, I have to say that. The bank officer, the teacher, you do your job, then you contribute to it. So that's a mindset change. That is not automatically through some authoritarian model. That model may not work because you can know who is going to be in power, some populists, some people who believe in ideologies that, I don't know what to say. It's a big question you raise, but it is debated in everywhere that India should follow China. So I oppose. Some elements, yes. Yes.
How can they pursue higher studies like JMA, international relations, those things?
Main international relations. Some of which I already said will apply. Yeah, South China Sea, that's another policy you don't want to follow. Such a stupid policy they're following, but with some success, which is South China Sea, they claim they created the 9th dotted line. Historically belonged to them. Total nonsense. The International Tribunal declared that claim has no historical value. So, according to the law of the sea, which they haven't signed, every country has got the right to commander, monitoring, control of that. Beyond that is international waters. No country can claim Indian Ocean. India cannot say, because the name is Indian Ocean. You cannot say that the Indian Ocean belongs to India. Nobody will agree that. Because these are international waters, like our outer space, anyone can go through that. You don't need permission. So what China is trying to do is coming with this spurious theory, historical theory, knowing that their assistance will be limited, and stupidly the Americans did nothing for a period of time. So in the high tide, low tide, many of these formations come out of the South China Sea. It's beautiful islands, little islands. But many of them are closer to the Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia. And so the Chinese are slowly building these little islands into the red, put a lot of mud in that, and create structures, claiming that once you occupy, this will be ours. There's the international law part which says you are in continuous control for a certain number of years, you are claiming yourself. Not a single country has accepted this position. But the Chinese have managed to create now naval bases. The Americans come with this freedom of navigation, occasionally the ships pass through, challenging that. But unlikely, that is a potential place for a war. If there is a war, that could be one that Americans will resist. And so, that has a limited value in terms of, they claim that it is because there's strategic value, there is something underneath the oil and gas. But it's a pristine water. Probably none of it has been to these islands and some of them in Fiji and all that. It's just so beautiful. It's like your Maldives, actually that kind of places. And so, this is a major policy they are building up. They are claiming they are a latecomer. The Americans already have bases, but those bases they don't own. They are given by host countries like Australia or Japan. Of course, they have a base in Russia, which they own. So, these policies are really problematic, but they managed to suppress the opposition. The Philippines went into the court, got this judgment, but then they kept quiet because they don't have the power. They are all Belt and Road Initiative that the trading, and that's through which they want to create a big system of dominance. which they are succeeding, of course, with some problems in Sri Lanka. So that's another thing India could do, a parallel Belt and Road, which is doing a little bit here and there, being stuck and all that, and not sufficient. For that, India has to become a powerful economy. You need to have money to go around and sell products and use infrastructure. And technology help other countries technologically. So there are some momentums here and there in collaboration with Japan, the United States, not sufficient. Now, studying, I mean, it all depends what you want to do. What area are you interested in? International is a big area, security, political economy. What is the area that fascinates you most? IR theory, international relations, but there are a lot of some areas underneath theory for foreign policies, foreign economic policies. So what you should do, whether you want to go abroad, which country you want to go. If I were you, I'll pick up these 10 places. First of all, you need a bit of money as application process. It's personal fees. There's no way out of that. They need dollars, which may be hard for you to do. So pick some 10 places, discuss with your professor or your interest. Look at the faculty who can help you train. Everywhere and expect different people of different nature. So maybe you like one faculty member on the program. You can pick some Australian one, British one, New Zealand is becoming. You can try Canadian, American, and then you enter that program and their application early on. In other words, don't wait until the last minute. So I said the application will be online by June for next September, and the deadline is usually December application, because after that these committees have to go through as a process. You need to get a visa if you get accepted. So put some effort into it. You cannot gain that just like preparing for exams, And if they need a GRE, take that, if the score is not good, you can retake it. Get the letters from people who can help you, and then apply and then wait for your luck. But the statement, as I said, is very important. What you say, and that's where you are judged, your writing skills, your ambition, your understanding of subject matter. So usually, what you should start, you should read some subject. You should have read some subject matter before you start writing. And also a little bit personal, I'm taking this course with somebody and I was enthused by the writings of so I want to know more about the subject matter. There's so much opportunity in that. And career-wise, what you want to do, hopefully academic research, teaching, jobs, public policy. There are a lot of public policy schools in North America. That's another place you should try. They have better job opportunities, government jobs, international organizations, multinational companies, better than typical IR programs. So just do a research on public policy schools, and they also give scholarships better than typical regular IR programs. So McGill has a well public, very competitive, but many Indians are coming. This competitive process. All of them get scholarship. Same with the UBC, same with all the schools. So develop a folder, go on your computer system, different schools application. If you are not ready yet, download them this year just to see what you need, prepare, collect the data, your papers, etc. If you've written a good research paper, somebody should show to your professor is include that as a writing sample. So these writing samples are one way to know how skilled you are in writing, analyzing, researching, data collection. A lot of things have to be done, and that determination has to happen prior to you finishing your school, or you finish course in work and then apply. So it's a process. And anyone who has gone abroad through this process is a good person to talk to. A lot of Malayalis now end up in program. Even in other disciplines, even in sciences, you have to do some of these things like this. So talk to them, what did it take? Even if it's a small school, masters from any of the Canadian school is good, any of the reasonable ones. There are a lot of little staples for science and technology. And then you can apply from there. But yeah, you have to have a plan of action, a strategy, and a passion. Nothing is given to you on a platter, unless you are born with a silver spoon, which most of us are not. It's hard work, it's determination, learning from others, what others did, talking to people, maybe visiting some other place in Delhi or so. There are, US Embassy or have helpers there, educational services, online specials have to enter. I'm sure the YouTube programs telling you how to enter so and so school, So a lot of things are on your tip, so but you really need to work on it. How are you doing?
Now I invite Professor Ashok from the Senior School of Prof.
One more question? Okay. Another question that increasing the young man there. Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we take questions together? You cluster. You say first and then. Question.
Within 10 or 20 years, China will become the new global leader, the new global order. So, after becoming global order, will China be, or it will very possible that China will be both in cultural and social, cultural and soft hegemony over the other countries in the world. So, would that be destroying the country's social and government order? Like we have imposing more socialistic approaches rather than going for democracy. Many countries are having multi-party, bi-party system, but Chinese having a single-party system. And or, you see that extreme version of China is itself decaying. So how will that be affecting the future of?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question because when a country becomes too powerful, sometimes others follow or imitate them. Now, surprisingly, not a single country has done that so far. Okay, they are adopting Confucian institutions and all that. But even Cambodia may be the closest. There is resistance to accepting the Chinese model. It doesn't mean that some of the things they're doing are valued. There is obviously respect for their achievements. But you go around the world, you find not many takers of the Chinese model. Even in Kerala, I don't think the Marxist Party is interested in following the Chinese model, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong. Because you have now been socialized into a democratic order. The social democratic system is superior to this authoritarian model. But yes, once they have too much material power, that you are assuming because they will be the dominant state. Maybe India will also get a powerful economy, which is protection is that India will be number 2. This is all the more reason why India needs to put its act together and becoming another pole of attraction. And then you have Japan, then you have Australia, United entities, even with soft power, because democracy has some superior value. That's the Western version than we think. So they will try, but they are proving sometimes as failures. Their handling of the COVID showed that that system has tremendous problems. A lot of people are suffering because of their model of healthcare, their model of morning time. Look at what they just closed down cities for three years. Shanghai, one of the most visible places where Chinese growth was taking place. They are known for adaptation and improvements, at times reforms. But I think the current leader is not cut out for that. He's a very authoritarian man. I don't see him transforming when he's alive. But it could happen, it could be a coup. Now, The world is going to be much more multipolar, maybe bi-multipolar. Chinese will have a place, the Indians will have a place, the Japanese should have a place. So it is better that it is not bipolar for India's sake. You need to have different pockets, different points of growth, economic growth, cultural growth. Everybody getting some voice in the system. Otherwise it will be going back to the old system of dominance and tributary model and whatnot. So, but India has to put up its capacity building. Its youth have to come out, become a major technological hub, do stuff with the United States. I mean, you don't have to be so anti-American. Use them, you know, they are willing to be used up to a point. Just like China did. Get their system. And India is, by the way, people going to study abroad now is the #1 source of foreign students in almost all this country. Which is not over time a bad thing because some of them will come back. And people will come back and engage you and help you. So although there is drain of wealth from India, it's not a bad investment to get educated from one of these schools. You come back if you can and help your systems. And many of the people are coming back. You know, it's not like everybody gets a job. People don't. But we have to create conditions here for people to come back and settle down. Get tougher or, you know, restrictions and all that. Anyway, and finally is here because we are now.
First of all, very happy to listen to you again. You will share your experience of visiting China. I would like to know what your experience. I'm sure that there was a country. I would like to know about your experience in visiting Pakistan and also Pakistani televisions, especially on the impact of your book on the wild state of Pakistan.
I only visited Pakistan once, which was a scary thing.
Let me just mention one more thing. During the last Independence Day, I almost arranged a webinar with one of the colleges in Pakistan. That is the FC college in Lahore, foreign Muslim college. I almost fixed the date for a webinar, but many people advised me that don't go with it. If you go with it, you will be in trouble. So I had to back out at the last moment.
With the Indian security, yeah.
Exactly.
Pakistan tells you that don't become an authoritarian state, don't become a one religion state, because Pakistan had initially thought it would be not secular, but at least the tiny Hindu, tiny Christian community could live there. But Pakistan abandoned all that under Ziaul Haq. Sunni Muslim state, not even the good qualities of Islam was promoted. And then it played all the geopolitical games. That's my argument in the book, geostrategic curse. You get all the money from all this China and now China, United States, but you don't improve your living conditions. Money goes to the coffers of this military complex. So Pakistan tells you, if you want to learn a lesson, don't follow that model. But the people in Pakistan, I've met many of them are good people. It's not the people, it's the system they created, the elite. In fact, Pakistani critiques of the system, some of them write excellent articles. There's a Haqqani in Washington, a friend of mine actually, ambassador, who is one of the most thorough critics you can ever see. I don't think many Indians write like that about their country. So many Pakistani scholars, journalists, they're very good in what they do. They are now falling into the China trap, but their infrastructure is improving quite a bit as a result. If they will succeed in this, the CPEC, I don't know. They are suffering from all the Mujahideen, the groups of Taliban is coming back. But they have a middle class, many of them are from the military and the other institutions. It's a country that needs a new vision, new change with great potential because they are in a strategic place where everybody loves them. To have something to that kind of positioning. But I think the fact that the US has almost abandoned them, which was not the case before, and adopted India to cut off that parity business. But China is also losing money there up to a point. So it depends how far they will go with China, allowing Chinese Navy which they may not because the US still will oppose that. But their policies have proven to be wrong in economics, and playing with this militarism, militancy, doesn't mean that they have a bad situation than India. Many pockets of India are worse than Pakistan, by the way. People forget that. They have developed their infrastructure, some of them are better than ours. And with CPEC, they will have. So, this is a country that has got potential, again, a demographic dividend, not used all that well. Educational system became rigid and teaching all the subjects that are religious based. But there is a good political science group of people there too. You will find very Pakistanis in many places. Earlier they could come to the United States and Canada and all that, but that number has declined. So I don't know what the question is very broad. Its model is failing because you borrow money and then you do whatever, but then you cannot pay back. Every now and then you need IMF to come to bail you out. So it's not a great model. They play geopolitics up to a point. But it's going to be 400, 500 million people, maybe the fourth largest country in the world or something. It's going to be a huge country with tremendous problems. And so South Asia has this countries, Bangladesh, the other one, growing rapidly with the mass number of people still not coming out of poverty. So there's growth here, and the question is how to use that demographic dividend for better. You have to go. Okay. Last question. Last question, yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
What is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor?
What?
What is CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor?
What is it? That's just a question you can get from Google or Siri.
Can you explain shortly? I don't know.
I think we can explain it. We know that there are many of us curious or questions, but you can explain it. We can go to move up.
That's easy to get that information online. I don't need to say much about it. No, you just go through Google it and you will get
Respect the class. Okay. Thank you so much for your participation. Proceed for this, please.
I didn't offend you, but I want
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful words and insightful conversation with us. Now, I invite Dr. Norman Glad to present a small talk of gratitude on behalf of the Academy.
my office, I have a lot of this. Now I have to carry all these nice things.
Now, let's wind up this wonderful session with the hope that this program becomes a fruitful one. For conveying a vote of thanks, I invite Dr. Sheeta Priyokas to the stage. Esteemed speakers, Professor Nikhil Paul, Vice Principal Dr. Jolwani, Head of the Department, Dr. Shimuli Jones, dear colleagues, and my dear children. Today is a special day for the Department of Political Science, as we have got a rare opportunity to conduct this program as a part of the Brain Gain program of the Kerala Higher Education Council in collaboration with the Central University and Business College. I find this opportunity as a privilege one, and also for the entire political science family, because it is a rare opportunity to hear from an international speaker, especially a Malayali representative in the international arena for the subject international relations. First of all, I would like to thank you, extend my sincere thanks to Professor David Paul for this informative session. He has given an in-depth understanding of and the basic details of the topic China's rise in the global order, and he has motivated and went into the details of the many opportunities for the students in the international arena, and he has described the procedure for the special opportunities in political science. Thank you, sir, for making this occasion a memorable. Next, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Principal Dr.